Why? The air was heavy, tense, as if the land itself held its breath. Darkness had fallen, but it was no ordinary night. 3 little children huddled together in the basement of their house. The elder boy had just witnessed something he had never seen before. Right there on the front door of their house, he saw a crimson sign glisten faintly in the torchlight. He understood it as a silent shield, a covenant of protection. But his 2 little sisters did not understand anything. They sat quietly in the darkness, and soon their parents joined them.
I'm scared,
said the little girl.
I'm scared too,
her brother replied.
what is going to happen?
I don't know.
said the brother.
Something really bad, I guess.
Shh, said the mother.
Let's pray that God might protect us supernaturally.
Can you hear that?
The father grabbed both the girls tighter. Don't listen. Close your eyes. Breathe. Just stay with me. As they waited in the basement, they did not see the shadow move through the streets and over the houses. It was silent, unstoppable. The ghostly figure swept over the nation like a sudden hurricane, and then it was gone. And just as they thought it was over, another noise pierced the night. This was more terrifying than any other noise. It was the voice of 1,000,000 people. They were screaming and crying. That night, the firstborn in every house in Egypt was killed by the angel of death. A few hours earlier, Moses called all the elders of Israel together and said to them, "Go, pick out a lamb or young goat for each of your families and slaughter the Passover animal." The blood of this lamb was smeared on the front door of every Jewish house. That's the sign that this little boy had seen. That night, the angel of death would sweep over the land, but he would not touch any house where he saw the crimson sign. He simply passed over that house. It was the blood that protected the Israelites. The destroyer could not touch them. Now, we are fortunate to read all this from the perspective of history. But back then for them, they had no idea what was coming. God commanded Moses, and it was by faith that Moses obeyed God and gave the people the command. In Hebrews we read, "It was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorposts, so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons." In other words, they were saved by the blood of the Lamb. This was such a massive event in their history that they had to celebrate the Feast of Passover year after year, according to God's command, to remember this incident and the great salvation of God. Even in the New Testament, we see how the Jews kept this feast. Jewish couples, wherever they were, would travel to Jerusalem for this feast because it meant a lot to them. Now, history tells us that they celebrated the Passover feast year after year. But one particular Passover feast became different, very different. This was the one where another lamb was killed on the cross. In the days of the pioneers in central North America, prairie fires were a terrifying event. The fire spread so fast that not even the fastest of horses could outrun this fire. So the pioneers had a way to protect themselves. When they saw at a distance that a prairie fire was coming towards them, they had only one way to fight that fire. They would take a match and burn the grass in a designated area around them. Then they would all take their stand in the burned area. This was called a firebreak. It was their only protection from the main blaze that was coming towards them. As it reached them, it would run out of fuel because the ground had already been burned. And so as the roar of the flames approached them, they would not be afraid. Even as the ocean of fire surged around them, there was no fear, because fire had already passed over the place where they stood. Dear Christian, when the judgment of God comes to sweep men and women into hell for eternity, there is one spot that is safe. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the wrath of God was poured on Calvary. There the fire burnt the grass, and there the Son of God took the wrath that should have fallen on us. And if we take our stand by the cross, we are safe for time and eternity. That night all of Israel heard the angel of death, and all of Israel heard the cries of the Egyptians. But did anyone hear the sound of the Lamb? It was a soft prayer, as the Lamb prayed all alone. Not even his disciples heard it. He went on a little farther and bowed with his face to the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet, I want your will to be done, not mine." Then Jesus left them a second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it, your will be done." Can you sense some hesitation in Jesus? Some say that he was afraid to die. How could that be? Then what about the millions of martyrs who died as Christians in the years later? Some of their heads were plastered with pitch and set on fire to provide light for the Roman gardens. So many of them died singing his praises. Would then the captain of their salvation be afraid to die? No, he wasn't afraid. Some say he was afraid of the devil. Oh, definitely not, because he came to destroy the works of the devil. So why did Jesus hesitate? Why was there this trembling in the last minute? The words of his prayer reveal it. Let this cup pass from me. One day, the mother of James and John approached Jesus with a request. "What is your request?" he asked. She replied, "In your kingdom, please let my 2 sons sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left." Can my 2 lovely boys sit beside you in your kingdom? Typical mother, wanting the best for her kids. Well, everybody wants to be in the highest and the best place. But Jesus answered by saying to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink?" "Oh yes," they replied, "we are able." They had no idea what they were saying. The cup of wrath is a biblical metaphor for God's righteous judgment. Listen to what Jeremiah says. "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me. Take from my hand this cup, filled to the brim with my anger, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink from it." Listen to what prophet Isaiah says. Wake up, O Jerusalem! You have drunk the cup of the Lord's fury. You have drunk the cup of terror, tipping out its last drops." Can you see how this word cup is associated with God's judgment? Even at the end of time, the 7 last plagues and the end times tribulation are pictured as bowls whose contents are poured out on the earth. Then I heard a mighty voice from the temple say to the 7 angels, "Go your ways and pour out on earth the 7 bowls containing God's wrath." It is also possible that when Jesus used the word cup, he might have been alluding to a very ancient method of punishing criminals. A cup of poison was put into their hands and they were obliged to drink it. History tells us that the great philosopher Socrates was killed in this manner in 399 BC. He was sentenced to death by a jury of 500 Athenians. The penalty chosen was death by drinking a cup of poisoned hemlock, a standard method for Athenian citizens convicted of serious crimes. Hemlock contains alkaloids that paralyze the nervous system. Later, Plato described how numbness began in the feet of Socrates and slowly crept upward until it reached his heart, causing death. Apparently, sometimes criminals would stand in a row in front of the judge, and the cup would be passed from one to the other under his watchful gaze. They would drink and die. But if the judge decided to have mercy on any one of them, he would then make the cup pass from him. Could Jesus have been alluding to this in his prayer? We don't know. But one thing is certain, that the cup did not pass from him. It came closer and closer, and Jesus appeared to be shrinking from it. This is because only he knew what was in it. There was one ingredient in that cup that Jesus knew about. And his humanity was shrinking from that. He was going to face the wrath of God. This was the most terrifying ingredient, making it a dreadful cup, a cup of fury, judgment, and trembling. The Bible talks of a cup in God's hand. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup, and the wine is red. It is full of mixture, and he poureth out of the same. But the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth, shall wring them out and drink them. Notice, there are three things mentioned about the wine. It is red, it is mixed, and there are dregs at the bottom. The redness of the wine is an emblem of the wrath of God, and this cup is full of wrath. But the second thing is that it is mixed. This means that in that judgment there are drops of mercy. And that's why take any example of God's judgment in the Bible, and you will find traces of mercy. For example, read of the judgment poured out in Revelation chapter 8. You will find one phrase being repeated during these judgments, and it is the phrase, a third part. 1/3 of the sea becomes blood. Not all of it, 1/3. 1/3 of fresh water is contaminated. 1/3 of outer space is darkened. What does this phrase 1/3 imply? It means that in each instance, God adds mercy with his judgment. And the psalmist says, this is the mixture in the cup of the Lord. It is red, but it is mixed. There is judgment, but there is mercy mixed with that wrath. But the third thing the psalmist talks about is what is at the bottom of the cup. Oh, that is terrifying. That is different, because those are the dregs. There is absolutely no mercy there. And that is the judgment of the lake of fire. Let's read Revelation 14, 9-11. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. and the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Notice that this cup is without mixture. It is the lava of God's total, pure, undiluted, holy anger without a drop of mercy. And this is the cup that was presented to Jesus in the garden. This was the cup meant for you and for me, but it was given to Jesus. This was the cup of hell, and that is why Jesus fell on his face. Are we really aware of the fierceness of God's anger against sin? Modern Christians no longer care about the wrath of God. Sin has blinded many, so they do not realize what kind of punishment sin really deserves. And so these modern Christians don't believe in the wrath of God, they don't fear the wrath of God. As Jesus prepared to become our propitiation, to bear the full weight of divine wrath that was meant for us, he took up the cup. Above him, the sky had grown dark, and it began to weep. Around him, Gethsemane trembled. There, beneath the gnarled branches of ancient olives, the Son of God knelt in agony, his sweat falling like great drops of blood. The cup that he held was no ordinary cup. It was not a cup of wine for celebration nor water for thirst. This was the cup of the Lord's righteous wrath, brimming with the accumulated fury of a holy God against every sin of every soul, past, present, and future. Abba, if it is possible, Abba, yet not what I will, but what you will. The surrender was total, the obedience absolute. As Jesus walked up the hill of Calvary, he carried the cross and the cup. As he pressed his lips to that cup, the winds of fury and favor began to blow. Fury upon him, favor upon us. The agony climaxed as the face of the Father turned away, but Jesus held the cup firmly to his lips. Betrayed, forsaken, and abandoned, the Son of God was lifted up between earth and heaven. The mercy of God was cut off from him, but he held on. He held on to that cup and sipped its deadly contents a little more and a little more. The cup that he began to drink in Gethsemane was pressed to his mouth until the very presence of God left him. It was not just a sip, But for 3 long hours, he kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. There was no spilling, there was no dilution, there was no escape. On that cross, the love of the Father and the obedience of the Son converged in a storm as Jesus took our wrath while reconciling justice and mercy in his substitutionary atonement. Finally, the penalty was paid, the debt was cleared, the covenant fulfilled, and the work finished. What a deadly cup was this! How did he do it? He surrendered because there was something greater to him, something greater even than the dread of God's holy wrath. And do you know what that was? That was our salvation. Jesus knew that you and I would never be able to drink of that cup. He knew that we would never face the holy anger of God against sin. And he also knew that if you and I had to be saved, then he would have to drink from that cup of wrath. And so he began, not just to sip, but for 3 long hours. He kept drinking until he finally drained its contents and it was totally dry. Then when the cup was empty, he smashed it at the foot of the cross and said, "Father, it is finished." Do you know what that means? It means that cup cannot be refilled. It is broken. It no longer exists for the people of God. So, dear friend, come and stand in the shadow of the cross, so the fire of judgment cannot touch you. You are safe in the shade of Calvary. Now this cup no longer exists for us. Instead, God gives us another cup. In the same way, he took the cup of wine after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant between God and his people, an agreement confirmed with my blood. Do this to remember me as often as you drink it. For every time you eat this bread and drink this cup, you are announcing the Lord's death until he comes again." My friend, the next time you hold a communion cup in your hand, remember the cup in Jesus' hands. This is part of the great exchange. His was the cup of agony. Ours is the cup of joy. His was the cup of shame. Ours, the cup of glory. His was the cup of curse. Ours, the cup of blessing. His was the cup of rejection. Ours, the cup of acceptance, the cup of salvation. The psalmist says, "I will take the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord." The 3 little children crawled out of the basement with hesitation. "Come," said the parents, "it is safe now." They walked out of the front door and looked out. Oh, everything looked so different this morning. The sky was blue, the air was fresh, there was joy in the atmosphere. They looked at their neighbors and their children and all the happy faces. Everyone was so relieved they began to greet one another, and they all said the same thing. Thank God for the Lamb.